Hello, this is Trish Kelly, Data Manager for Federal Programs and Oversight. Welcome to the English Learner Data Mini Webinar. As you know, our work in the department is guided by the Best for All strategic plan, which emphasizes academics, student readiness, and educators. Our agenda today begins with English learner identification process and English language background classifications, including the home language survey, screening results, assessing progress in learning English, and transitioning from ESL. Next, we will examine English language background classifications in more depth, providing a summary and anticipated progression, followed by state funding and federal reporting, checking your data in EIS, suggestions for after the session, and contact information. English learner identification process and English language background classifications. The home language survey. When students enter school, their families complete a home language survey, frequently known as the HLS. When the survey indicates that only English is spoken by the student or within the family, the student is identified as a native English speaker and coded with the English language background classification. When the survey indicates a language other than English is spoken by the student or within the family, the student is screened for proficiency in English, and the result of the screening determines the student's English language background classification. We'll look at two scenarios. In this first one, the student does not qualify for ESL. If the screening indicates that the student is proficient in English, the student does not qualify for English as a second language, is identified as having a non-English language background, and is coded with the N or NELB English language background classification, which is defined as first language is not English, and the student never qualified for ESL services. In the second scenario, the student qualifies for ESL. If the screening indicates that the student is not proficient in English, the student qualifies for English as a second language services, is identified as an English learner, and is coded with the L English language background classification, which is defined as first language is not English and qualifies for direct English as a second language services. If the parent or guardian of an English learner chooses to waive direct ESL service, the student is coded with the W English language background classification, which is defined as English learner who declined direct ESL services in order to receive ESL services in a regular classroom. Home language survey screening and the like for pre-K students. If a language other than English appears on a pre-K student's home language survey, the English language background classification depends on whether or not the student is screened for proficiency in English. If the pre-K student is screened for proficiency in English, the result of the screening determines the student's English language background classification, just as described as above. However, if the pre-K student is not screened for proficiency in English, the student's English language background classification is entered as N or NELB, non-English language background. The status is revisited in kindergarten when the screening occurs, and changed to L or W if the student is found not to be proficient in English. Assessing progress in learning English. English learners, that is students with the L and W English language classifications, take the WIDA Access assessment each spring to determine their progress in learning English. Students who score below the exit threshold continue to receive ESL services, retain the L or W English language background classifications, and are tested annually until they demonstrate proficiency in English. Students who score at or above the exit threshold on the WIDA in the spring begin their transitions from ESL in the next school year and are coded as T1 or 1 the first transition year from ESL the next school year. The English language background classification changes to T1 or 1 only for the first transition year from ESL, not for the current year and not for the prior year. Transitioning from ESL. The transition from ESL is a 4-year process. There's an English language background classification for each year. T1 or 1, transition year 1. T2 or 2, transition year 2. T3 or 3, transition year 3. T4 or 4, transition year 4. If the transition process occurs without interruptions, the 5th year after exiting ESL, student becomes a former English learner and is coded as F, which is defined as former EL status attained upon completion of the 4th transitional year. In this next section, we'll delve a little deeper into the English language background classifications, summarizing what we've just discussed, providing an anticipated progression, and also discussing reclassification. English language background summary. English learner L. First language is not English and qualifies for direct English as a second language services. Waive direct ESL services W. An English learner who declined direct ESL services in order to receive ESL services in a regular classroom. T1 through T4 for transition years 1, 2, 3, and 4. Students who then are transitioned from ESL, as we discussed, in a 4-year process. Former English learner F, former EL status attained upon completion of the 4th transitional year. Non-English language background N or NEL. First language is not English and the student never qualified for ESL services. It's important to keep in mind that NELBs are screened for English language proficiency because a language other than English appears on the home language survey. Please do not screen for English language proficiency unless a language other than English appears on the home language survey. For additional details about English language background classifications, please see the FPO Data Manual and the EIS Data Dictionary's Appendix E, English language background. English language background classifications anticipated progression. You notice on the right, there's a table. In the leftmost column, you'll see an English language background current year value. The middle column would be the prior year, and the final column on the right is the next year. So we'll discuss some the anticipated progression through the program, keeping in mind that we're focusing on students who progress as expected. We're classified in the current year as E or N. Those students would have the same code in prior and future years. Students who were L or W in the current year were L or W in the prior year and will be L, W, or 1 the next year, depending on the WIDA Access assessment results. Students who are 1 in the current year were L or W in the prior year and will be 2 the next year. Students who were 2, 3, or 4 in the current year were 1, 2, or 3 in the prior year and will be 3, 4, or F the next year, respectively. Students who were F in the current year were 4 or F in the prior year and will be F in the next year. We hope this table and this explanation will be helpful to you as you're coding your students. Reclassification and re-entry into ESL. Students who struggle and transition may re-enter ESL and be reclassified as L or W. Upon subsequent exit from ESL, they will restart the transition process in the first transition year from ESL and will be coded as 1 or T1 in the next year after exit. At this point, we'd like to just emphasize that all students should receive the services they need to be successful, regardless of their English language background. State funding and federal reporting. State funding. 4 English language background classifications determine the English learner portion of state BEB and TISA funding. English Learner L, Wave Direct ESL Services W, Transition Year 1, T1 or 1, Transition Year 2, T2 or 2. Federal reporting. For EdFax files and other federal reporting, use the English language background classifications listed below for the following subgroups. For federal reporting, the English learner subgroup or the limited English proficient subgroup includes English learners, students with the L English language background classification, and those with the W Wave Direct ESL Services English language background classification. For federal reporting, former EL being monitored or LEP being monitored includes students in transition years 1 through transition year 4. In the next section, we'll review checking your data in EIS. You will use the English Language Learners Research query to check your data. Log into EIS, select Data Reports and Research Queries. Select the English Language Learners Research query from the Research Query list. Choose an English language background or choose all from the drop-down box. To run the query, select View Report. To download in CSV or Excel format, use the file icon to the right of Find Next. The query results include English language background, native language, birth country, and date first enrolled in U.S. school. As you examine your data, review the business rules in the next several slides. Native language business rules. It's important to remember that native language is never English for students with the L, W, 1, 2, 3, 4, F, or N English language background classifications. By contrast, native language is always English for students with the E native speaker English language background classification. Please enter native language for all students in your student information system. Student information system packages may default to English if the native language is not entered. Native language will not upload as blank or English to EIS if English language background was L, W, 1, 2, 3, 4, F, or N in 2017, 18, or later. Birth country business rules. Complete birth country for all students to ensure that your data are accurate. SIS packages may default to US if the birth country is not entered. Date first enrolled in US school. Date first enrolled in US school cannot be uploaded as blank if English language background was L, W, 1, 2, 3, 4, F, or N in 2017, 18, or later, or the immigrant flag was Y in 2017, 18, or later. And those two requirements apply to students who are in grades pre-K through 12. So students in grades pre-K through 12 for whom they have an English language background other than E, or for whom the immigrant flag was yes, date first enrolled in US school cannot be uploaded as a blank to EIS in 2017, 18, or later. English language background classification business rules. This refers to the cross-validation of extracts 40 and 41. Since the business rules for the date first enrolled in a U.S. school and native language on extract 40 are tied to the English language background on extract 41, English language background is a required field on extracts 40 and 41 for 2017, 18, and subsequent years. English language background is set and edited on extract 41. It is included on extract 40 only for validation. Extracts that include blank or invalid values generate fatal errors and will not load. So again, it's very important to keep in mind the cross-validation between extracts 40 and 41. A few suggestions for after the session. Please regularly collaborate with attendance, early learning, technology, federal programs, and other colleagues to ensure that your data are coded properly. Frequently check your data in your student information system and EIS and upload revisions as needed. For additional information, please refer to the FBO Data Manual, which you'll find in ePlan, as well as the department's Planning and Monitoring Guidance and Reference Materials webpage. Conclude with contact information. If you have questions about English learner data and coding, please contact me, Trish Kelly, FPO Data Manager, at trish.kelly@tn.gov. For questions about the English Learner Program, please contact Bryn Obermiller, Senior Director, ESEA Oversight, at bryn.obermiller@tn.gov. For EIS errors and restaging problems, please contact the District Technology Support Team at dt.support@tn.gov. Thank you very much for joining me in this session. I hope it was helpful to you.